Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Build Your Best Life with Deborah D. Smith. I am so excited to have you here today. My platform uh, is designed to assist high school age and young adult males as they follow my basic principles to overcome obstacles in their personal lives as well as those that society throws at them each and every day in order to build their best lives. I believe it is better to train early rather than to fix later. I am super excited to have my special guest here today, Pastor Fred Smith. Welcome. So glad
Thank
to
you,
have
Coach Deborah. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you. Now, Pastor, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Pastor Smith, and then if he has anything additional, he'll tell you about that. But I'm going to give you an overview. Uh, Pastor Pastor Smith is a prophetic voice that God has ordained for the proclamation of the gospel of the kingdom of God. He was born and raised on the beautiful island of Nassau, Bahamas. He is founder and senior pastor of the Bridge Christian Center with his lovely wife, Rochelle Smith. The Bridge Christian Center was birthed October 2011 with the purpose of exalting Jesus Christ as our King and to teach the principles of his kingdom. We believe that the finished work of Jesus on Calvary is the bridge that bridges the gap between heaven and earth. We also believe that God will use his people to build kingdom bridges in the earth. Pastor Smith has over 20 years of service in the gospel ministry. As a gifted teacher of God's word, Pastor Smith has ministered the word of God on cable network stations in Southeast Asia, the Caribbean, and North America. He has an extensive background in community service, development, and church governance. He has an associate's degree of science from Southern Union Community College, a bachelor's degree in marketing from Jacksonville State University, and a master's degree in public administration with concentrations in business administration and education counseling. He is also a graduate of the Alabama Association of Nonprofits Executive Leadership Institute. NELI. Nelly focuses on leadership, community development, and nonprofit governance. He has held leadership roles in higher education, serving as the director of Jacksonville State University Wellness Aniston Program for Jacksonville State University, and as a college instructor at Gadsden State Community College. While at Jacksonville State University, the program led by Pastor Smith was recognized by both local and state government for its contribution in community development and wellness. Due to the effectiveness of this program, it was recognized by the Alabama Department of Public Health and received a commendation from the Office of the Governor of Alabama in 2009. Pastor Smith is currently the Director of Grants and Partnerships of the Community Foundation of Northeast Alabama. In 2020, Pastor Smith was selected for the Shift Award from Jackson Hole, Wyoming for innovation and impact. He has served his community in many ways. He and his wife had the privilege of being spotlight pastors for the Atlanta TBN studio broadcast February of 2013. In 2014, Pastor Smith completed the Dr. Miles Kingdom Training Institute in Nassau, Bahamas. This was the last institute personally taught by Dr. Monroe before his transition to heaven. In 2018, Pastor Smith was invited by the Alabama State Legislature to conduct the opening prayer for the state legislature session. Pastor Smith met and married Mrs. Rochelle Smith after completing here in the United States. They currently live in Jacksonville, Alabama, with two daughters, Eden and Zion. Pastor Smith is known for his engaging and revelatory presentation. He is a sought-after conference speaker and is the host of a weekly television broadcast called Kingdom Perspective. Everybody, Dr. Fred Smith.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Coach Smith.
You are welcome. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us about yourself or your church?
Well, I think that sums it up in the bio. I love my family. I love the Lord, and I love doing his work.
Awesome. Well, this month is Build Your Best Life has been celebrating Boys to Men Month. And so today we're going to be talking about our topic is show him how. And, people throw shade at young men all the time, no matter what they do. Some people just look at young people as they don't have anything good to say. So they just throw shade. It's not always easy for our young people. But what we need a lot of times is somebody to reach out and show them the right way to go to help a boy to become a man. So that is our topic for today.
Right.
All right. So Pastor Smith, we have an adage that says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, but you teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. So why in your opinion, is it better to teach or show a young man how to do something?
I think that's a very powerful question, and it's one that I have heard most of my life. But I think it was not until later in life that I really embraced that concept and realized how powerful the question and really the statement is. I think the question itself points to something called self-production. Many times we find people in the situations and conditions that they're in. And there's one thing that is common, and that is a lack of self-production. If you think about a tree, let's use an apple tree or an orange tree, a peach tree. You can provide the soil, you can provide the water, you can provide the sun, but that tree still has to produce the fruit. There's an element of that production that you cannot do for the tree. You can give the tree everything that's surrounding it, everything that it needs, the nourishment, the nurturing, the sun, the water, and make sure it's in good soil. And you can come back and water it and water it and water it and dig around it and water it. But there's something that the tree has to do in order to be fruitful, and that is the tree has to produce. And the tree by itself cannot do it, but the person that's assisting the tree by themselves cannot do it. So really, when you're talking about teaching versus just giving, what you're doing is you're partnering with that person so that they can maximize the level of fruitfulness in their life. And so when it comes down to teaching young men, it's okay to model in the front of them what it's like to produce what you have produced in your life. And, the adage, it goes into and it stops at teaching the kid or teaching the young man how to fish so that he can eat for a lifetime. But I would even take it one further than that, Coach Deborah. I would say teaching the young man how to fish will also teach them how they can buy the entire pond one day.
Wow.
Yeah, so many of our young men, they want to get to the status of not just learning how to fish. They want to know, how can I own the whole pond? How can I own the pond, and how can I hire other people to fish? So I think we need to let our young men know that there is a starting place where you see the model of someone else fishing, and in that model, they're giving you some of the fish that they have produced. Then they graduate from there to where now they say, okay, I've seen it modeled in the front of me long enough. Now it's time for me to learn how to do this myself. And we're using the analogy of fishing, but it can be anything. It can be a skill, it can be a talent, it can be a passion, it can be some type of job employment, it can be shadowing somebody at work. They see you produce and produce and produce and produce, and you go on Friday or every 2 weeks or once a month, and you are getting some fruit from the work that you put in, right?
All
But
right.
here's what they do. They graduate into learning how to do it themselves, and then they need to be encouraged to say, okay, now I've taught you how to fish, but don't just stop here, because you could own the entire pond. And that gives them something to go to, even beyond what they thought they would even be able to accomplish.
Oh, I like that extra step in there. I
Yeah.
had never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
That's good. So not only can they be taught how to do something, but then they can go on to ownership,
Yes.
having employees, and even leaving a legacy.
That's right, because that's really what the challenge is the stereotypical lifestyles that's modeled in the front of our young people. The young people, the reason they gravitate towards certain um, styles and lifestyles, and even if they don't know how other people got to where they are, they're still gravitating towards it, because to them it's saying ownership, is saying that they can do something that's beyond what they've ever done or even seen. And that's what they want to do. They got a term out there called being a boss, right? Everybody, wants to be a boss, and that's what the young people say, man, so and so, he's a boss. The next person, he's a boss. He's a boss. This person's a boss. Well, everybody is really supposed to be the boss first of themselves. Because if you are the boss of yourself, that means that you are giving yourself opportunities to produce. And if you give yourself the right opportunities to produce, then eventually you're going to find that what you want to accomplish in life starts to match up with the work that you're putting in. And we got to let people know, young people know, that the only place I've heard this said too, that they said that there's no place where success comes before work. And so we have to let people know that young people know there's a realistic picture of being the boss, and there's a price to pay to be the boss, because when you are the boss, that means that you have perfected learning and knowing how to fish, perfected your gift, perfected your craft, perfected what you're doing, to the point to where now you're not just being employed, but you can be deployed.
Oh, that is so awesome. All right. Good evening, everyone out there. Dan, thank you for tuning in. And if you have some comments, y'all send us your comments. We appreciate it, and please share. All right. As you were coming up, Pastor Young, did you have someone to guide you and teach you, or did you have to sink or swim?
Well, first, I always take these types of opportunities to acknowledge my parents, my mother and my father. They did. I'm grateful that I have the mother and father that I was raised with. They did the best that I know that they did the best that they can do. And some of the life lessons that I'm able to walk in today is because of lessons that I learned from them. So I was fortunate to have and to know both parents, and both parents are still alive as I'm speaking. So I don't think I ever, as a child, had to sink or swim, because I had somebody to help carry me as a child. But even as I grew up, I think that, parents can only take a child so far. At some point, a child has to learn the lesson, hear the instruction, and put it into action. So even though you can have mentors, even though you can have people that surround you, even though you can have people to help to fertilize your life. I had my parents, I had ministry leaders, I had coaches. I was involved in sports all the way up until organized sports, all the way up until my 20s. So I've always been in a situation where I've had adults that have helped to shape and mold me and speak into my life. But still, there's still a point in your life where even with all of those good things, because there are people that have all of those, that have that resume, had good parents, had a good home, was on ball teams, and still went in the wrong direction. So really what we need to show kids and tell kids is, um, you know, just because you have the right the right environment, success is still not guaranteed if you do not put the right principles in place in your life. And you look at your life, because you're not sinking, it doesn't mean that there's not a possibility to sink if you stop doing what you're supposed to do. So there is something that young men need to know, and that is um, putting into practice and putting into action the things that they are learning is the first step in seeing the results that they want to see.
All right. Great tips. Thank you so much for those. I like that. Success is not guaranteed if you don't put the right principles in your life, regardless of if you have that kind of goes back to that tree. So you have all those right things in order to grow or whatever, but it's still up to you to bear that fruit.
It's up to you. It's up to you. That's right.
That's awesome. Okay. Now we have drug dealers, gang leaders, entertainers around that are willing to show young men just how that they can be great at those things that they're great at, even though that they're sinful. Why do you think we aren't as we don't get as much support from other men to step up and show our young men things that are positive? All those people that can show them the wrong way to go. They're just eager and they're passionate about what they're doing out there. Man, I can show you how to sling. Man, I can show you how to do this and that, throw the signs or whatever. But when it comes down to getting men to step up, to, put that hand out and help our young men, it seems like we don't have an abundance of those.
Yeah. I think the challenge is that ordinary, everyday men that may not be famous, may not have what we would call, quote unquote, the fame of some of the other industries that are out there, is that they have to realize that, number one, that they can start where they are, and number two, they can use what they have. Start where they are, and two, use what they have. I think a lot of men feel intimidated simply because if they feel, if I'm not leading it or if I didn't start it, then I can't be a positive contributor. And I would like to say to potential mentors and potential leaders out there, you don't have to be the one to start it in order to support it. And so a lot of people want to wait until they can start it. And they say, you know what, I'm going to start something. And when I start it, then I'm going to reach out over here. And I'm going to wait next year. I'm going to start it. And then 2 years later, I'm going to start it. And 3 years later, I'm about to start it. Then 4 years later, well, you see, this had happened and I was going to start it. But the thing about it is you don't have to lead it in order to be a part of it. So use the time that you have. If you don't have the time to lead it, you can have the time to volunteer with something that's already started. If you can give an hour, if you can give 2 hours, if you can give 3 hours, you don't have to be the one to lead it in order to be a positive part of it. So I would say to men, use what you have, use the talent you have, use the time that you have, use the gifts that you have, use the resources that you have. Decide what you are able to give right where you are, right with what you have. And then don't compare yourself to what someone else is giving or what someone else is doing. Just know that you are counted among those that are a part of the solution and not the problem. Our young people gravitate towards those industries because it looks like not just success, it looks like fast success. And what they need to be educated on is the statistics. For every person that makes it to the major leagues, there are hundreds of thousands that did not. For every person that becomes a platinum selling artist, there are hundreds of thousands that did not. For every person that makes it to a blockbuster movie in Hollywood, there are hundreds of thousands around the world that did not. So if they learn those statistics, then they will say, okay, I can't put my life on hold until I hit it big. I got to start where I am, use what I have, and I will gradually grow into the greatness that God has for me. I will gradually grow into the success that God has for me. But a lot of young men put their training on the shelf and put their work ethic on the shelf and say, you know what, I'm just trying to find a shortcut to get what that person over there has. And you don't realize that that person has a story, and they need to know the story before they feel like they are entitled to the glory.
Great. What is that story? You're so right. And we were talking, I believe it was last week, about, education. And, although I realize college is not for everyone, but if not college, there are trades that you can take up, plumbers, electricians, and all of this. But one thing, like you say, people don't do that research. So just like somebody that, they can have the best talents of being a pro, let's say, basketball player. And, they put everything into that, and that's wonderful. And they get that pro contract, and then they just go buck wild, and they spend all this money, and they got drafted and without, completing college. And they say, well, I don't need college. I'm not going to do that. I don't need that. And then they spend all this money, and then they get hurt.
Right.
So you spend all your money. You don't have any money. You don't have a trade or anything because you thought, I don't need education. But if you follow those statistics, sometimes you have to stop. You should always stop and think about what you're doing. Your decisions matter. Last night I was on Coach Ricardo's radio show, and the topic was success is a choice. So even though you have that talent and you can do those things, you have to use wisdom with them as well. And what's all the scenarios that can happen in my life? Because every day is not going to be a sunshine day.
Right. So, and I think we don't want to discourage the kids from, if, being a professional athlete, go ahead and dream. Being a music icon, go ahead and dream. If that's, what it is, if you want to own businesses, go ahead and dream. You can do, don't give your dream any, put a ceiling on your dream. Don't put a lid on your dream. Let your dream, because it said like this: the dream is free, but the hustle is not. So the dream is free. You can dream as much as you want, but the hustle will cost you. So you got to ask yourself, okay, if I have a big dream, I'm going to have a twice as amount of work to accomplish that dream. Right. And so I think letting them know that The dream is free, but the hustle is not. You will have to put in the work in order to get to that big dream. And it's amazing how people start to change their dreams once they realize how much the hustle costs.
Mm.
You know, people start to say, okay, I don't want to do that. It's like, you're right. Everybody's not going to go to college, but I remember when I went to college, and I mean, I just kept hearing the guidance counselors saying that, that computers are the future. And then I turn on the TV and they're saying computers are the future. And this person over here, computers are the future. And I kept hearing that. Well, I didn't have a passion to be a computer software person or anything with computers, really. Just to be able to work it, use it, and be able to work with them. But I didn't have a passion to be in that field. But I said it just because I heard everybody else saying it. And they said, people that work with computers make a lot of money. So I picked something not because it was my passion, but because I heard that they said it was the future and you could make a lot of money in it. So I get in my first computer class and I'm looking around the room and I'm saying, I know I need to learn how to use computers and I will do that, but I can't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. Right. So I just went off of something that I heard someone else say, but it wasn't my passion. So I would say that once a child goes into a place of self-discovery, that's what a mentor can help that child with also is self-discovery. Like my children, I have two beautiful daughters and they play sports, but they don't just play one sport. So we started them off with track and field, and then we moved to soccer, and then we moved to volleyball, and then we moved to softball. And so, we're doing all of that so that they can discover what is your passion. Now, this is what Daddy's passion was when he played sports. But what is your passion? So we give you a taste of all of these different avenues. But my job and my wife's job is to make sure that what we allow them to be a part of is something positive. So even when they make their choice, it's out of 5 positive things. Nothing in the selection is negative. They still get to make their choice, but we provide the selections. So that's what a mentor does. A mentor says, okay, if you want to be a professional athlete and that doesn't work out, here are 4 other choices based on the skill set that you say you have, the passion that you have, the drive that you have, the things that you can do well. If you can't be on the league, you might can be a commentator in the league. You might can be a coach in the league. You might can be a physician in the league. You might can be a motivational speaker in the league. You can do something, but you got to help them with those positive options.
All right. Yeah, that is so good. Thanks, Catherine. Catherine says you have to put in the work. You have to put in that work.
Yes.
I love it. Yes. Because our kids, no matter what anybody tries to tell us, we know our children have, gifts and talents. And all they have to do is put in the work to, because all of us have gifts and talents, but some of us just, put them on the shelf and don't do anything with them, so nothing happens. But when they take those gifts and talents and put the work in, I mean, the results are there. And we are seeing that now on, the different, with the Olympic trials and all that on TV, we seeing, how our young people are coming up in these different areas.
Yes. So and a lot of new faces. I've been watching it and enjoying it. A lot of new faces are bursting on the scene.
Yes.
And the old guard is, moving off, and some of them not even making the team. And you got these new, fresh faces that this was their dream, and they were watching these people in past Olympics, and now it's their turn. So that's another thing we can tell them, Coach Deborah, that soon it will be their turn. And they got to make sure that they're ready for their opportunity.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so what are some ways that we can get young men to focus more on making wise or well thought out decisions?
Yeah, that's a powerful question. I at one point it was around 2001, so that's like 20 years ago. I was a counselor at a substance abuse center, and my caseload were teenage boys, and I was their counselor for 3.5 years. So I would work with these young men, um, and my caseload would be around 25 young men, and they had different issues, but the one thing they all had in common was substance abuse, different types of substance abuse. So one of the things I realized was um, much of our communication to them was to tell them, okay, here are the consequences for doing something wrong. So, our groups would be based around consequences. Our lesson plans would be showing them the consequences. If you do this, here's where you can end up. If you do, and even we would put them on the bus and we would take them down because they were still juveniles. We would take them down to the prison and let prisoners talk to them and say, "Listen, y'all don't want to come here," you know. And that was kind of the pattern of counseling and counselors during that time. But I've come to think about it a bit differently now. And it's okay to tell somebody about the consequences, but I think another effective way that we can reach young men is by telling them the rewards of choosing a different life. Because usually, if you tell someone the consequence, the only way that works is if they're afraid of the consequence. What if they're not afraid of going to prison? What if they're not afraid of getting kicked out of school? What if they're not afraid of being locked up again? What if they're not afraid of going back to another treatment facility? So it doesn't matter what consequence. If they're not afraid, that consequence is not going to shake them at all. And that's what we're seeing, that you can talk about prison, you can talk about joblessness, you can talk about this or that, but our young people are not afraid of anything. So talking about that, you can talk about that all day long, and then you can turn around and say, I just don't understand it. I told them about the consequences and they just won't change. They just won't turn. I think we need to shift it from talking about the consequences to talking about the rewards. Listen, here is the reward in the front of you if you choose this path. And so if they can get a glimpse of the reward, now they have something to go after rather than just something to stop doing. It's much easier to go after something than to stop doing something. And I see that in everyday life. It is much easier to go after something than to stop doing something. To stop doing something, the consequence got to be, and the pain of doing it got to be beyond your threshold. But what do you do with somebody when their threshold of pain is out of this world? You tell them something, a consequence, and they laugh at you. I don't care. Go to prison. All my boys in prison. Get kicked out of school. I don't care. I get more stripes on the street. Well, you won't get a job. I don't care. Who won't work at McDonald's anyway? So that don't work. But if you say, okay, here's what I'm putting in the front of you is if you do this, you can earn this. If you do this, you can end up here. If you do this, okay. And so that by itself redirects the focus of that young man, not to stop doing, but to start doing. And if they start doing, guess what's going to end up happening? They're going to stop doing. Because when they start focusing on what it is that's in the front of them, here's what happens. They don't even have enough time to continue what was behind them. and they say to themselves, man, I can't do that. I'm almost there. I'm close to the goal. I'm about to be hired. I'm about to get in position. I'm about to do this. And so I think that that is our future, where we start to redirect young people and change our model from a consequence base to showing them the rewards and showing them how they have the skills to attain these rewards.
That stuff, I like that. And that's, and it's so impactful that you said that, because I'm always teaching about positive words and what you speak and who you have around you and that positive mindset. So it's the same concept. So if we can start teaching from a positive mindset rather than a negative mindset.
That's right. That's
so
right.
That's powerful.
That's right.
That's good stuff, Pastor Smith.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. That's a great question.
Right. People are quick to judge, criticize, and demean. Why do you think they are not as quick to reach out and touch? And this is kind of like similar to the other question, but again, you have so many opportunities to be a help and not a hindrance. You can be positive and not negative.
Yeah.
So
I think people criticize what they don't understand, and people criticize what they fear. If a person doesn't understand something, the only way that they can communicate about it is to criticize it. If they fear it, the only thing they can do is to criticize it. But in order to communicate change, you got to learn about it, and then you got to communicate with it. And learning about it is a lot of the breakdowns, because we have one mode of thinking that says, okay, this is how children should be. But the reality is, this is how children are in 2021. Right? So the learning goes both ways. The learning is not just for the child to learn from the adult or the mentor, but the mentor or the adult has to learn about the world of the child. If we don't learn from the world of the child, we won't communicate. We will only criticize. So we need to ask them questions and not just give them answers. We give them answers because we know the answers that are time tested, because we've tried them and we know it works. But we still need to understand their world a little bit better. So that puts us in a place of asking them questions. And we got the principles that can help bless their life. We know we got them, right? We've been through some things. We've survived some things. We know how to overcome. We know how to progress. We've seen levels of success, but we still have to be open enough to ask questions. And I think that right there moves a person out of the critical role into the role of being a teacher and a learner. I use this analogy and this example. If you saw a female walking and her hands were swollen, her feet were swollen, and she was vomiting a lot, right? You can look at her and say something's wrong with her because you don't understand what's going on. Well, another woman will see her and say, oh, you okay? You just pregnant, right? And the reason the other woman to them can provide comfort rather than criticize her hands, rather than criticize her feet, rather than criticize her vomiting, is because they have learned that language. So they're not going to criticize a woman that's going through something that they probably have gone through themselves if they have children. So, but what can they provide? They can provide a level of comfort, and the lady that's pregnant for the first time will turn around and say, "You mean that this is okay? Yeah, that's okay. You're going to overcome that. You mean that I won't be vomiting for 9 months? No, you're not going to vomit for 9 months. You mean that my hands and feet will eventually go back down? Yes, your hands and your feet will eventually go back down. You mean I will be able to run again and move again and do and cycle again and do all these things? Yes, 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 yes. I'm here to tell you that this is a natural part of the process. So, but where did you get that from? You got that from learning it, right? While somebody's on the other side that's never been there, that's never done that, is criticizing. What's wrong with your hands? What's wrong with your feet? Why are you vomiting all the time? Don't understand, right? So when we get into these spaces with young people, I have learned, and I'm saying I've learned because initially I was the counselor, and I'm here to give you the advice and give you the principles. And I've learned in the groups that I taught those some 20 years ago, the best way for them to receive what I have is if they feel like I understand their world. And so I would give them a short period in the group to just talk about their world, just talk about their world. What's it like? And then I come and I give them the principles. So I think that that helps in us giving and learning.
Yes, that's so good, because you don't know what you don't know.
That's right. You don't know what you don't know. That's right.
Yes, so you can use that wisdom and experience and knowledge to assist. That is so helpful to others.
Yes.
Not be selfish, but to use it to assist.
That's right. To share it.
Share it.
That's why God has given an apple tree is at its best when someone's eating the apple.
Yeah.
Once somebody's eating the apple tree is like, okay, this is why I was planted. This is why I was planted. I went through the root stage. I went through the growing stage. I went through all that I went through just to be able to provide and produce this apple. And now somebody's getting nourished from it. The apple tree is like, okay, I am walking in my purpose. I'm walking in my destiny. Same thing with coaches and pastors and teachers and leaders and mentors that have the opportunity to share with other people. When they get it and they walk in it, you're fulfilled because you say, okay, now I'm reaching my purpose because somebody's getting what I'm saying.
All right. Exactly. It's so awesome to be able to assist others. Excuse me. All right, Pastor Smith, what tips would you give to mentors, coaches, parents, and others to provide nuggets to young men help rather than the harm? Some nuggets.
Some nuggets.
Yes.
Yeah, some nuggets would be, I will restate it. Start where you are, use what you have, and know that you have something to give. Don't put being able to help on hold. Use what you have, start where you are, and you will be surprised how much that can make a difference. The person that's leading the program, if they had one more person, they probably can reach 5 more kids. If they had 2 more people, 10 more kids. So you would be surprised with you coming and showing up for that hour, for that 45 minutes. You may say, but I'm busy. But if you use what you have, start where you are, you would be surprised. And that would not only revolutionize their life, but it will revolutionize your life, because you will realize that, hey, I have more time to give. And before you know it, you're giving more time. You're giving an hour, you're giving 45 minutes, you're giving, 2 hours, you're giving 3 hours. Before you know it, you're taking, you're constantly giving. And in the pastor's role, you know, I'm constantly giving, I'm constantly putting out, I'm constantly training, I'm constantly equipping, I'm constantly sharing, I'm constantly, and the same with you as a coach, you're constantly giving. But it's a blessing when you inspire others to do the same thing, when I inspire others to do the same thing. And people say, well, you know what? I may not have the same platform as Coach Deborah, I may not have the exact same platform as Pastor Smith. I would say you don't have to wait until you get these types of platforms before you start. You can start where you are and use what you have. And you don't have to lead it. You can just support it. And there are many ways that you can support it. Sometimes people just need support with a little bit of finances, or something you may have in your house that you're not even using, and you take down there to the rec center, and the kids can use it. You may have an opportunity to get passes for the kids to go to a football game, a basketball game, something like that. And listen, you didn't start a youth program. You didn't even go to speak to them, but you know the person that's doing it, and you say, you know what, I want to jump in and support it. So, Coach, next week the guys can go down to the baseball game on me. Or next week the guys can get Coke sodas on me after practice. Or next week, bring the guys to the movie theater. I'm gonna buy movie tickets for everybody. Or next week, meet us at the park. Our church throwing a barbecue. Let the guys come. Like, we've had conferences that had nothing to do with youth, but it was a good environment and good experience. And we would reach out to a youth center and we would say, let your young men, like we had a treatment facility come to one of our conferences. It was our pastor's anniversary, and we had a international speaker that we flew in, and the international speaker was speaking, and it had nothing to do with substance abuse. But to me, having that background, I said, you know what, we can use this platform to reach out to people. So we invited a substance abuse facility, and we said, bring your men. And because we were having free food after the event. So they show up to the event, they're sitting, I turn around, they're in the back, they're clapping and shouting and everything else, and enjoying themselves doing praise and worship. But it had nothing to do, and we didn't start the program. We just reached out to a friend of mine, and I said, bring your guys. And he's like, you know what? We've been looking for something to do positive on a Sunday afternoon, and this was just positive. So we fed about 35 young guys, men. We fed about 35 men, and we didn't start it, but we supported it, and I'm telling people out there, you can do the same thing. You don't have to start it, you can support it. And if you're gonna start it, make sure that you have already determined that you're going to continue with it.
Right. That's good. Thank you. Well, this has been some great information, and thank you everybody for engaging in. This is my passion, so I love talking about stuff like this. So Pastor Smith, as we kind of close out, can you give our followers 5 reasons? She just keep harping on this, but give them 5 reasons that they need to step up and show our young men some positive life principles.
5. Okay, I'm going to give you 5. I might repeat one that I said before, but I'll give you 5. The first one is, know that your tomorrow begins today. What you do today is equipping the next generation for tomorrow. Number 2, use what you have and start where you are. Use what you have and start where you are. Number 3, learn the power of communication. And know that communication is a two-way street. And in communicating, you get to learn as you share. Number 4 is you don't have to lead it to support it. So this is really a recap. And number 5, this is one that I have not shared yet, but learn the power of partnerships. You'll be surprised how your influence and your reach can grow through partnerships. There's somebody that's already doing what you want to do, and then there's somebody already successful at what you want to do, and there's somebody that's somewhere where you want to be. So seek to partner. And this is something that we share with not-for-profits all the time, is the power of partnerships. So as we reach out to young people, ask yourself, who in the community can you partner with to help build their best life in the life of young people? Those are my 5. It's muted. It's muted.
I'm so sorry. I muted it because the phone was ringing. Okay, those 5 are very powerful. I know you had gave a couple before, but they still are very powerful. They are needed. And I was saying, I love that number 5, learn the power of partnership. You know, like you say, you don't have to start it. You don't have to be the one with your names up in lights, but you can support someone else. Somebody else has a good idea. Hey, why not help them out? You see somebody doing something, hey, that looks like a good idea. Let me go help them out. I said I was going to start something, but I haven't done anything. So, why, let this talent, I know some things. So why let the talent go to waste when I can be assisting someone else? Maybe that's where God wants me. That's why I hadn't started yet. So that's powerful.
Yeah.
But I thank you so very, very much for coming on, and everybody, please that's on here, like this, continue to send your comments, and please share this with someone that wasn't on here and you think, hey, they need to hear this. I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much. As we continue, and please visit my website, www.buildyourbestlife.org. On there you can find out more about Build Your Best Life. You can find out more about me, my calendar of events. That's the best way to get on all of my lives, is to go on my website and click on the various logos for YouTube, Facebook, Twitter to get on my lives, as well as I drop a blog on every Monday that's out on my website. And of course, my web store is out there with my services. I'm a coach, a consultant. I do speaking engagement, webinar speaking, and I have my book, Build Your Best Life, which is basic principles. And this book is for young men, ladies, pastors, coaches, mentors, parents, grandparents. But it is basic information to help everyone to build their best lives, or to assist someone else in building their best lives. Now is a great time. I know we just had Father's Day, but a lot of people miss Dad. I don't know why, but you can still get that gift for Dad or a grad. Yeah. Copy of my book out there on my website. And I appreciate that. And please tune in this Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. for another live session with Build Your Best Life, because we are trying to change our young men one life at a time. As always, as you travel on your road to being a better you, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. You will run into distractions, pitfalls, rough terrain, and detours. Don't let any of those negative aspects of your journey stop you. Though they may slow you down, keep going to be a better you that you can build your best life. And remember, building your best life is our business. That's not a slogan. That's my commitment. Thank you. Be blessed. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. And I said Saturday, but I see you Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.